This is Sean Allen speaking, and as a result of some posts that have gone up recently concerning the request for more information on a linear and a rotating curriculum, I thought I'd put down a little bit of a written explanation of the things that have happened to me with both of those curriculums. And the reason being is I ran a linear curriculum for about 10 years with, that's where I built my club up to about 400 students. And then when I had around the 400 mark for the next 8 years, I ran a rotating curriculum. And towards the end, it was sort of a hybrid of the two of them. So let's have a look at the positives and negatives for each one. Okay, as you can see, with a linear curriculum, we tend to have a start point being point number 1 here, and this might be a requirement. So there might be requirement 1, requirement 2, requirement 3, requirement 4, and finally we get a belt. And usually we're going to find that when we first start off a student in the martial arts, they're going to have to work through in this particular order. Now, for an example, number 1 might be a fighting stance, number 2 might be basic punches, number 3 might be basic kicks, and anything else that is in your curriculum. And then for the belt, they have to show you those requirements, then you get the belt, and then so on and so on and so on. This might be blocks, this might be weaponry, etc., and so on and so on. So with a linear curriculum, it's exactly as it says. It's linear. It goes top to bottom. The problem is that let's imagine you have 5 students here. Okay, and that's quite easy. So when they all learn that, they go in there and there's 5 students there. Now, imagine you've got 5 new students there, 5 students who've been with you for a few months, 5 students and 5 students. Next thing you know, you've got 5 separate groups of people. Now, if you have 3 instructors and yourself, this all works quite well because of the fact that you are there, instructor 1 is in there, instructor 2 is in there, instructor 3 is in there, and it's those people there who are moving into the next belt level and so on. The complexity is there, but being linear, it's not too much of a problem. If one of those people goes on holidays for a while, when he comes back in again, he just slots straight into that group. So he goes back into group 2. The problem is when we start rotating this, which is what we'll look at next. So the linear curriculum, relatively easy when students move in and move out of the groups each particular time. The only problem is, as you can see, I've got 4 instructors there teaching different content. The problem is when I've got 2 classes joined together, imagine I've got another 5 people there, another 5, another 5, another 5, and so on. I've now got 8 groups learning different things. And that's within the one class. Actually, if you've only got 2 belts, imagine that's all the white belts and that's all the yellow belts. So you've got 2 classes, 2 belt levels, but you've got 8 groups, a logistical nightmare if a couple of your instructors go down sick. Let's have a look at the rotating curriculum. So here's the rotating curriculum, and it's the same sort of thing, but all we've done is rotate around the requirements. So in any particular month, let's imagine that you just started last year in December teaching the first section of your curriculum. So this one here too, that becomes January. This becomes February, and it means that everybody in that one class in January, irregardless of if they're brand new or if they've been there 2 or 3 months, they all learn that particular part of the requirements or of the curriculum. The problem is this. The good point is that you only need 1 instructor and 3 assistants. Okay, 3 assistants. So yeah, the content is managed very easily. The problem is, let's imagine that person A goes on holidays for that particular month. So I'm going to rub him out. He's not there. He comes in February. Now he's done part 1, he's done part 3, he's done part 4. Pretty soon he needs to redo part 2. But suddenly he's not up to that. We're redoing part 1 again. This is the problem with the rotating curriculum. And if someone misses out a particular month, he can't quickly repeat that section unless some instructor, unless you release an assistant, I should put ASSIST, unless an assistant is segregated to be able to catch people up. So your record keeping has to be much more specified, much more complex for people who miss out on this. So yes, you do need to be able to have your act together to be able to control the rotating curriculum. But like I said, when you are teaching each specific area, it probably gets taught better, because quite often, instead of having 3 people or 4 people who are teaching different areas and you've got to go and record which one is doing the best job and if they're teaching it all correctly, you've got one bit of content being taught. And this might be, I don't know, punches. That might be kicks. This might be something else, but you've got to make sure that they are all at about the same level. I can't teach punches here, kicks there, and then combinations here. Because if someone comes in, and I'll put new member, if someone comes in there, and this would be March, if someone comes in as a new member in March, there's a new member, they haven't seen the kicks, they haven't seen the punches, how can they do combinations? So you just need to restructure as we're going through the year to make sure that whatever you're doing, someone must be able to move in to that area without having any prior knowledge. Obviously, you would do your combinations down there. This might be combinations. This might be defence. This might be, I don't know, groundwork, whatever it might be. And I'll put BJJ. So for combinations, they must have done the work up there. For defence, they would have done the work up there. And that's the type of thing that you take care of in the belt gradings. Combinations, yes, all that kind of stuff is well worth it. The problem is this. When a person gets their first, second, third and fourth tip, if they just get first, second, third, fourth tip, and if they've got all their 4 tips, then they get their belt and they move on to the next section, they don't have to remember anything from previous months. What you need to do is you need to catch them before they move on. When I first did this for about a year, I found that people, as they started to move through the spectrum, they forgot that as soon as they finished and got their tip. They forgot that as soon as they finished and got their tip. And so on and so on. At the time they knew it, but afterwards they didn't. So what I did was I put a net here and a net there. And these were linear. So this was I'll put hybrid and hybrid, which means a mixture of the both. So I thought, right, from all the content just here in my first, second, third and fourth tip, what is the guts of it? What's the really important things in my martial arts system that I want to make sure that they must know? And obviously, you might have several techniques there, say 4 techniques. You might have 4 techniques here, 4 main techniques there, 4 main techniques there, and maybe a kata or a pattern or whatever it might be. So that's 16 techniques and a kata. If you really want to control quality, which most of us do, we've got to think, right, of those 16 techniques, what must we have? What absolutely must we have to get the belt? And if they don't, they can't move through to the next level. What must they be able to perform? And I'll put yellow belt. What must they be able to perform? So here's our hybrid. These are the techniques that they learn in no particular order. These are the techniques they must be able to perform. These are the techniques that we rotate through in no particular order. These are the techniques they must be able to perform. So I'll put these are the must, level 1. These are the must, level 1 and 2. Number one is revision, number 2 is a must, and so on as we go down. This way, you get the best possible method of instruction because the main teacher is teaching it and all the assistants are ensuring that the performance level is high. And then you can have a look here to make sure, right, these are my standards. And I would, in the long run, I'd go way down here and I'd have a look at black belt. What do you want as a result from the person way down here, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, hopefully 8, 9, 10 years later on, you go, what must they be red hot at? And then you start to test that here. You start to break that down. So, for instance, say there's 5 major skills they must have that are absolutely brilliant at black belt. Teach that main skill there. And then teach that main skill and the next one there. So at least you are grinding in basic knowledge so they become a master of just a few things and not a jack of all trades, which unfortunately is what the martial arts world has tended to become. We tend to teach people a variety of interesting techniques so that we keep them motivated, but we aren't really doing them the favour. Now, I hope that was helpful, and that short little explanation was obviously 15 years in the making because of the fact that I originally was taught a linear curriculum where we would move through the requirements one by one. But as my school grew bigger, with the teething problems you get when you pass 100 students to 150 to 200 students, you end up having, as I've just said then when I wrote it down, you end up having 5 in this group, which is fine, and then 5 in this group, so you get someone to help you out, and then you've got 5 over there and 5 over there, and then those 5 graduate, and then you've got 5, and next thing you know, you've got groups and a very complex timetable. So I just found it was much easier to be able to say, right, everybody, we are learning, we're working on this month, no matter what your level is. And once I dealt with those 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 basic concepts, then I had to segregate upper level people to be at a later time slot. And again, they would work on other more advanced concepts at a later time. And again, I need to make sure that the quality is there. So now, I suppose if you want to create your own rotating curriculum, you need to think, what are the basic core fundamental skills that you need to be able to test? There are obviously going to be some things that you're going to add in there just to create interest. You're going to put a little bit of some Arnie Sinawalis in there. You might put a lower figure 4 from the guard for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You might do anything. You might do a jumping, spinning hook kick from Taekwondo. But the main things that you will choose, and it's not up to me, and it's not up to any other instructor, but the main things that you want your black belts to be able to perform under pressure and look like they could actually do it in a real situation, that's up to you. So those are the things that I would say would you put into the belt level testing. And the most important thing, I suppose, is to explain your method of operation to your students so they understand what they're learning as they're moving through your little rotation. But probably the most important thing is you explain to them in written, video, and verbal format what the core principles are, the core fundamental movements that you must see for them to move through to the next belt level. And obviously your first few belt levels, it's not going to be tremendously hard. But especially when you get further on down the track, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, what are the things that they must be able to do? They must be able to perform. So even though you're rotating through and giving out tips every now and again, you've got to have a brick wall every now and again, especially at higher, mid to higher belt levels, where these are the exact requirements you must perform. If you're interested in finding out a bit more, drop me a comment in the box below, but otherwise, I hope this helps.